Hi everyone, Amy here. I'm checking in just to wrap up our discussion from the week before Thanksgiving, week 8, when you had the surprising reversal writing prompt and your nutshelling the argument open discussions. I know these discussions took place almost 2 weeks ago now at this point, so I apologize, but I am happy to touch base here. I think this will really help kind of get us back on track and help you use what you did the week before Thanksgiving as you're drafting your arguments for the rough draft workshop that we're doing this week. So just to clue you in, don't forget to do your course evaluation if you haven't done that yet. And then our to-do list for week 9 is here. Just below that should be showing up on your news feed. This is a very straightforward week. It's our last week of discussions and we just have the one peer review workshop discussion this week. So just work on getting your rough drafts of the argument written and posting those by midnight tomorrow. There are a couple of videos here that will help you on a kind of global level to make sure that everything is structured properly and that all of your paragraphs are laid out in an appropriate way that will help you in achieving your persuasive purpose, and then also the reading matrices for this week. And that's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and jump into our discussions from last week. I don't have a whole lot to say in terms of redirecting or anything like that. I think you all did a pretty great job with both of these discussions as a whole. The grades are going to be much higher, and I can tell that you all are trying to finish strong and really push it out and get some points here before the end. So great job with that. I did mention in my midweek update in week 8, I kind of went over some of the initial responses to the prompt, at least your original posts here of your surprising reversal statements, and overall I do think that most people did a pretty good job with that. I'm going to pull up some examples in just a second, but don't forget that with the surprising reversal structure, you do have to rely very heavily on those transitions, such as many people think that blah, 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 counter-argument, and then however, in reality, X, Y, and Z, that's actually your argument, or you might say some people believe versus in reality, or something like that. The biggest suggestion I would say that I have is pretty nitpicky, but just try to avoid any first-person pronouns in your academic argument writing. This is kind of a different writing situation than the blogs we did on the last essay, so it's much more formal. Much more high-level discourse, and so you do want to avoid any first-person I, we, my, us pronouns, as well as, of course, any second-person you pronouns, which should pretty much be avoided at all times. So as you are negotiating those transitions, try not to say I believe or something like that, because it kind of brings down the formality of your discourse, but it also kind of undermines your claim if you're saying, well, I believe this. And it's almost like too much of a qualifier saying, well, this is just something I believe, when in fact you're actually trying to persuade your audience to agree with you, and so you would then want them to believe it as well. It's not just something that you believe, it's something you think everyone should believe. So that's just kind of a nitpicky thing, but it'll bring your statements up to the next level. So let me just pull up some 5 minutes of fame here. This will be our last time. I'm going to try to focus on just different aspects of the discussion. And in general, all this assignment was asking you to do was tie your counter argument to the thesis using surprising reversal. But what I really would challenge you to do as you're working on your rough drafts for Wednesday is to make sure that the entire thesis is comprehensive of all the points you're going to make in your argument. And that'll be something you can do as you revise these theses that you came up with last week into the actual thesis you're going to use in your essay. So this person said, many people think that the Deepwater Horizon spill, or BP oil spill, only affected the area around the oil rig itself and that the effects from the spill were only short term. On the other hand, I believe that the BP oil spill spread as far as the Florida Panhandle and that the spill had impacted the wildlife in both the short and long term. So this kind of speaks to a couple of the things I was just saying. This is a really good example of surprising reversal. This person did everything right in terms of just what last week's writing prompt was asking you to do, but there are a couple things you could do to tweak it to make it a little bit more appropriate for your actual essay. And that's just a revision thing. I mean, this is what happens when we write things down and they get better and better over time. So I'm not saying this to say that what's here is wrong. This is excellent for a first attempt, but now we're going to look at some ways to revise it to make it even stronger in the actual essay. So one thing I would say is that these transitions are great. Many people think that counter argument, and then on the other hand, here's my argument. I would just take out the I believe here. So that's just a little quick thing, easy to get rid of. On the other hand, the BP, whoops, take out that extra word. On the other hand, the BP oil spill did spread as far as the Florida Panhandle, etc., etc., etc. So if this was the argument, if this was the thesis as it appeared in the actual essay draft, I would say that this person's main points are going to be following the counter argument that should be developed in a paragraph right after the introduction, 2 body paragraph points about short-term impacts on wildlife and long-term impacts on wildlife. But knowing the scope of the assignment I've given you, I'm going to assume that this is not everything that the person's going to say here, because really this would only yield 3 paragraphs after the introduction plus a conclusion. So the counter-argument paragraph, 1 paragraph about short-term effects, 1 paragraph about long-term effects, and then the conclusion. That's not going to be enough to get you to the minimum 6-page length requirement. So I would ask, were there any other impacts beyond just the short and long-term effects on wildlife? So were there any ecological implications, any effects on the economy, on tourism, on recreation, anything else like that that you could point to that would be a problem or a negative effect that came from somewhere as far away as Florida or even Texas or something like that, not localized around the area of the oil rig itself. So maybe there are a couple other problems here that this person could include as points to kind of beef up that support for your position, that this is affecting a wide range of the geographic region as opposed to just the local area. And then beyond that, I would say this is going to lead your reader to ask kind of, so what then? If there are these widespread, long and short term, geographically diverse problems, what is the solution that needs to be enacted to solve those problems? And that's where I was talking earlier, I think several weeks ago, about the difference between your overall central claim and your supporting points. Usually we see problems like these as just supporting points to an overall larger argument about something that should be done to fix the problem, and that's what's missing here. So you really are truly lacking that actual highest order central claim, which in this case sounds like it's going to be a proposal of some kind, but that needs to be stated here as part of the thesis and then incorporated into the body of the essay as well, which will also help make it longer. So something like, on the other hand, the BP oil spill spread as far as the Florida Panhandle, and the spill had impacted or has impacted the wildlife in both the short and long term, has impacted the economy, has impacted the ecological area and affected recreation, etc., etc. Therefore, whatever you think the solution should be. So therefore, there should be a nationwide effort to rectify these problems, or therefore the sanctions against BP were not enough, or whatever it is that shows up in your research that you think would be an appropriate response to the fact that you're saying this is such a great problem that is somewhat going unacknowledged because people assume it's just a local thing. So I hope that makes sense. If any of you have further questions about that, let me know. But as I said, almost all of you did a really good job at least structuring the surprising reversal, back and forth kind of counter argument versus your actual opinion. Just when you get to your actual thesis there, make sure that it's comprehensive of everything that you're going to be talking about in the body of the essay. And if you're laying out some problems, it's natural, logically, for your reader to assume, well, there's got to be some kind of solution here. I also saw a lot of really strong comments that were focusing on other counter arguments that people could come up with, suggestions for ways to improve each other's arguments. So that's definitely the kind of comments I'm looking for, kind of going beyond just this, great job, I really liked your post, I like your topic, but actually giving useful suggestions that the writer can use to develop and ultimately revise their argument. So this person did a good job. They said, this is the first post of this week that I've read on this topic, but I think it's a great one. I had to read your post a few times to fully understand your reversal. However, it's a great start. Maybe if you said something like, many people believe that our privacy online is diminishing. However, privacy can be strict or relaxed depending on how much an individual wants to share. Just an idea of a sentence I had. I think your essay will turn out great. So this is still really positive, still really affirmational, but there's definitely a criticism involved here, and a constructive one at that, because they're offering a suggestion for how to fix it. And then this is really strong surprising reversal transition work here. Many people believe that, however. So this is a great structure for it, and I thought this was a good example of a comment that gives the writer something to work with, something to go off of to improve their writing that's actually going to be useful to the person. And then finally, this was the best week for your all's reflections, so great job. About half of you still didn't do them, but the ones that were there were much stronger and a lot more along the lines of what I've been looking for all semester. So again, thanks for kind of stepping up the effort at the end and pulling it out here. This person said, thank you so much for taking the time to check out my discussion this week on the surprising reversal prompt. I feel that if terminally ill patients are not given the choice, that they will find a different, more extreme route to trying to end their life, and what if they do not succeed with the attempt? Then the family and the patient will have another problem to figure out besides trying to help the pain, that they will have to be sure that the patient would not be allowed to injure themselves further. The whole process takes time to be approved, and assisted suicide needs more than one doctor to approve. Then the patient interested in dying with dignity must stand in front of a board or council to determine all the basics and be sure that no one is being forced into something that they don't really want to do. David, you had some really great questions that raised my curiosity and made me wonder. I know that this will be my topic for sure, but I'm not quite satisfied with the order and wording of my counter-argument, so I sort of played around with it before it meets I may play around with it before it meets my expectations. So this may seem like the person's just generally discussing the issue, but there's actually some really good substance here, because in all of this discussion in the first part of the paragraph here, this person's not only exploring their topic, they're actually brainstorming reasons to support their argument. So the idea that they'll find a more different extreme route if they're not given the choice, that is a serious reason to support this person's argument that they can use in their thesis and develop in a body paragraph. The idea that it takes a lot of time and that there's a very rigorous process for approval, that's another reason that this person could use to develop their argument and develop in a body paragraph. And then in the second half of the reflection here, there is some response to actually one of the comments they received, talking about the surprising reversal itself, how to make it transition better. So these are all comments that are directly related to how the person's going to improve their writing, and that's absolutely what I'm looking for in reflections. So great job overall. Several of you were very successful with that this last week, so I appreciate your effort on that. Let me try to get into the open discussion quickly. We don't have a whole lot of time left here, but I did want to comment on a few of the threads, particularly this first one from Jessica's, because this is where I really saw the open discussion format taking off and doing really well. We did end up with 4 original posts for week 8, and that's okay. But what we saw in Jessica's thread really exemplifies what I mean when I'm saying you can do just as much with your replies as you could by posting an original thread. So a lot of the first part of the discussion here is just simply responding to Jessica's original post, and Jessica's doing a great job checking back in, so there's a lot of back and forth, and it's very productive. And Luke too didn't just comment and walk away, he came back. And then Nikki started commenting, but then as I said in my midweek, Nikki did a really cool thing where she went ahead and said, you know, good job, I liked how you did these things. However, I also attached my own at the bottom of the page so you could check it out and give me some feedback. And this is really cool because Jessica and Luke and anybody who looks at this thread is going to benefit from reading Nikki's post just as much as Nikki is going to benefit from getting the feedback from them. So it was really cool, and I appreciated, Jessica, that you did provide Nikki with some feedback, and there's a nice back and forth. And then Alexis even jumps in and ultimately posted her own nutshelling work. And so here Nikki and Alexis are really showing again, what I mean when I say you can do just as much with your replies as you did in your original. So this is a very in-depth conversation. It's all recorded here in the discussion. And really, this is an example of the beauty of discussions and why I love discussions, because you can have such an in-depth conversation with multiple people, and it's all recorded here for you to see. So any of the ideas that came up in this back and forth exchange are going to be right here in the discussion for you all to see whenever you want to go back and revise your papers. So great work with that. I thought there were also some other really good comments on Amber's original posts, and a lot of really good back and forth, partly facilitated by the fact that Amber was checking in a lot, but especially Horatio's comment to Amber here was very productive. It gives her some practical suggestions. So that is an example of what I'm looking for, but I'm running out of time, so thank you very much.